Wherever you are tonight, I hope you are comfortable, settled into a quiet corner of your world, perhaps lying down, perhaps just leaning back, letting the outside fade gently. Tonight, we will drift together along a river, but not just any river, an invisible current that flows through thought, through time, through the living, breathing planet itself. We will explore the mind of a river, its flow, its subtle awareness, the way it shifts and changes, shaping and reshaping everything it touches. And in doing so, perhaps we will glimpse something of ourselves reflected in its waters. Imagine a river at dawn. The air is cool, the mist clinging lightly to the surface of the water. Each droplet, though small and unassuming, is part of a vast interconnected network, moving in unison toward a horizon it cannot yet see. The river begins in silence, born from a trickle, perhaps a spring hidden deep within a forest, or the melting snow at the crest of a distant mountain. At first, the water is delicate, cautious, moving with care over mossy stones and through shadowed gullies. But even here, in its earliest form, it possesses an intelligence, not a consciousness like ours, perhaps, but a persistent awareness, a sense of the path ahead, of the obstacles that will shape its journey, and of the landscape that bends to receive it. Flow is the essence of a river, and it is in flow that we begin to sense the mind within it. The river does not rush blindly, it negotiates, it curves, it pauses. Every bend, every pool, every cascade is a conversation with the terrain. When a river encounters a rock, it does not attack. It adjusts, curls around it, sometimes wearing it down over centuries, sometimes sweeping past with gentle grace. Flow is patience made visible. Scientists call this process fluvial geomorphology, the study of how rivers carve valleys, deposit silt, and sculpt landscapes over time. But it is more than geology. It is a slow, intentional dance. The river carries both energy and memory, remembering the stones it has polished, the banks it has nourished, the forests that lean over its edges. In its reflection, we see time itself, unhurried and intimate. And yet, a river is never truly still. Even when it seems calm, a subtle current moves beneath the surface. Tiny eddies swirl in secret, unseen to the casual observer, shaping patterns that will only emerge far downstream. These currents whisper the river's awareness of its environment, the weight of rain from a recent storm, the arrival of snowmelt, the passage of a fish or a fallen leaf.
Rivers, like living beings, respond to stimuli. Hydrologists have long studied these changes, noting how water levels rise and fall in precise rhythm with seasonal cycles, how sediment deposition changes the course of flow, how even the smallest interruption, a fallen branch, a beaver dam, a human bridge, elicits a subtle, compensatory adjustment. A river senses, reacts, and adapts. Consider the Amazon, sprawling across the vast heart of South America. Here, the river does not simply flow, it breathes. Its pulse reaches far into the rainforest, flooding the plains during the wet season, then receding in the dry, leaving nutrient-rich silt behind for the forest to flourish. The Amazon remembers the rains, the droughts, the shifting sands. Indigenous peoples have long understood this as the river's mind, speaking not in words, but in the language of cycles, patterns, and shared life. Scientists today confirm this, observing how these natural rhythms maintain biodiversity, nurture soils, and regulate climates. Flow, it seems, is not just water in motion, it is life, intelligence, and quiet awareness in action. Rivers also teach us about change. No river remains the same from one moment to the next. Even the seemingly placid stretches conceal a ceaseless negotiation with the world. Erosion, sediment deposition, the growth of vegetation along the banks. All these processes remind us that change is constant. Look closely at the Mississippi, and you will see it shifting hundreds of meters over decades, altering channels, creating oxbow lakes, reclaiming land, surrendering it. This is the river's lesson, that rigidity is illusion and adaptability is survival. Flow teaches resilience. Like water, we must learn to navigate our obstacles, curve around them with gentle persistence, and continue moving even when the path is uncertain. And there is a certain poetry in the river's memory. Consider a single raindrop that falls high in the Andes. It trickles into a stream, joins a tributary, merges with larger currents, and finally reaches the Pacific Ocean, perhaps months later. Along the way, it carries traces of the mountains, of the soil, of the flora and fauna it has touched. In this way, rivers archive the history of the lands they traverse. Geologists call this sedimentary record, a chronicle of erosion, climate, and ecological change. But it is also, in a more intimate sense, a narrative, a living story whispered through water. Every meander, every whirlpool, every quiet bend is a sentence in that story. And if we listen closely, we can read the river as one reads a diary, full of moments, full of quiet understanding, full of life. Flow and change are deeply intertwined, but the mind of a river carries another subtle dimension, awareness. Not consciousness in the human sense, but a remarkable sensitivity to its environment. Rivers respond to touch, to temperature, to the presence of life around them. Salmon, for instance, navigate thousands of kilometers to return to the rivers of their birth, guided in part by chemical cues carried in the water. This is navigation through awareness, through subtle information embedded in the flow itself. The river, in essence, carries knowledge. Every fish that swims, every bird that drinks, every plant that grows along its banks is connected to this quiet intelligence. The mind of a river is not a solitary mind. It is relational, existing through interaction, through connection. Perhaps this is why rivers have inspired humans for millennia.
From the Nile to the Ganges, from the Danube to the Yangtze, civilizations have risen along their banks, drawn by the promise of water, fertile land, and connection. Poets have compared rivers to thought itself, meandering, reflective, deep, and sometimes turbulent. Philosophers have seen in rivers a metaphor for existence, ever-changing yet continuous, powerful yet yielding, fleeting yet eternal.
Heraclitus, the ancient Greek thinker, famously said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river, and he's not the same man." In that simple observation lies the essence of flow, of change, of awareness, the interplay between water, world, and self. As the day progresses, the river gathers strength, tributaries converge, rains fall, and its voice grows louder. Yet even in its crescendo, it does not lose grace. It knows the delicate balance between force and subtlety. Rapids crash and tumble over rocks, yet beyond each turbulence there is calm. Deep pools collect the journey's wisdom, holding it like a quiet meditation. Observing a river, one notices the paradox of strength in gentleness, of movement in stillness. Here lies the lesson, that awareness does not require haste, that insight can emerge from patience, that flow is both a journey and a presence. Even as humans, when we approach a river mindfully, we begin to mirror its qualities. Sitting by the water, we notice the small sounds, the burble over a stone, the whisper of leaves brushing the surface, the faint ripple of a fish. Our minds slow, unconsciously matching the river's rhythm. Our thoughts, once jagged and hurried, begin to drift like leaves along the current. Awareness is no longer a distant concept. It becomes a felt experience, a resonance with the flow. And in this resonance, we understand that the river is not just an external phenomenon. It is a mirror for our own consciousness. To witness its flow is to witness our own capacity for patience, for adaptability, for quiet observation. Tonight, as the light fades and shadows lengthen, imagine a river beneath the moon. Its surface reflects the stars, and yet beneath that reflection, the water moves with ceaseless intent. It carries stories, memories, life, and knowledge, moving always toward the sea, toward change, toward the unknown. It does not resist. It does not hurry. It simply is, aware of itself and the world it touches. And in contemplating the mind of a river, we are invited to do the same, to flow without force, to change without fear, to be aware without judgment. In the end, the river teaches us that existence is a journey of constant negotiation and gentle persistence, that awareness need not be loud to be profound, that change is not loss but continuity in a different form, and perhaps most importantly, that flow, real, mindful, enduring flow, is the rhythm of life itself, echoing in the waters, in the forests, in the mountains, and quietly inside us. So, tonight, as your eyes grow heavy and the world softens around you, carry with you the mind of the river. Let its flow remind you of patience. Let its awareness remind you of presence. Let its endless change remind you that life, like water, is a perpetual unfolding, a gentle, ceaseless story waiting to be felt.